The stars look different out here. Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold window of the exploration ship and watched the distant suns twinkle like tiny diamonds. He had been in space for 3 years now, but the view still made him feel small and amazed at the same time. "Jake, get over here," called Dr. Amy Carter from across the bridge. Her voice was excited, the way it always got when she found something new. Amy was the smartest person Jake had ever met. She could look at alien rocks and tell you stories about worlds that died millions of years ago. Jake walked over to where Amy was standing next to the big screen that showed what was ahead of their ship. Captain Lisa Park was there too, along with Dr. Ben Rodriguez and the rest of the crew. They were all staring at something that made Jake's mouth fall open. It was a space station, but not like any human space station Jake had ever seen. This one looked like it was made of glass and silver. It had long curved arms that reached out like the branches of a tree. Beautiful lights moved along its surface in patterns that reminded Jake of music made visible. "How big is that thing?" Jake asked. "About the size of a small city," Captain Park answered. Her voice was calm, but Jake could tell she was worried. Lisa Park had been a ship captain for 15 years. She knew when something was dangerous. "The strange thing is," Amy said, pointing at her computer screen, "it's not supposed to be here. Our maps show this area of space as empty. No planets, no stations, nothing." Ben Rodriguez was looking at his medical computers. He was the ship's doctor, but he also knew a lot about alien life. "I'm getting some weird readings," he said. "There's definitely something alive in there, but the signals are very weak." The station was slowly turning in space. As it moved, Jake could see that parts of it were broken. Long cracks ran down its sides like scars. Some of the beautiful lights were dark, and pieces of metal floated around it like sad confetti. "It looks abandoned," Jake said. "Maybe," Captain Park said. "But we need to be careful. Amy, run a full scan. I want to know everything about that station before we get any closer." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard. Numbers and pictures filled her screen. "The station is very old," she said after a few minutes. "Maybe thousands of years old. The metal is not like anything we've seen before. It's stronger than our best materials, but also more flexible." "What about weapons?" Captain Park asked. "I don't see any," Amy replied. "But there are these strange crystal things all over the inside. They seem to be connected to the station's power system." Jake watched the station turn in the darkness. Even broken and old, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. It made him think of cathedrals and concert halls, places where people went to feel something bigger than themselves. "Captain," Ben said, looking up from his computers, "the life signs are getting stronger. Whatever is in there, it knows we're here." Captain Park was quiet for a moment. Jake knew she was thinking about all the things that could go wrong. In space, there were many ways to die, and most of them were quick and final. "We should leave," said Tom Wilson, the ship's engineer. Tom was a good man, but he worried about everything. "We don't know what's in there. It could be dangerous. Or it could need help," Amy said. She had that look in her eyes that meant she had made up her mind about something. Jake had seen that look before. It usually meant they were about to do something exciting and possibly stupid. "The station is dying," Amy continued. "Look at the power readings. Whatever is keeping that life form alive won't last much longer. If we leave now, we might be letting someone die." Captain Park looked at each member of her crew. Jake could see her weighing the risks against the chance to save a life. This was why he respected her so much. She never made the easy choice when the right choice was harder. "All right," Captain Park said finally. "We'll move closer, but slowly. Amy, keep scanning. Ben, monitor those life signs. Tom, make sure our engines are ready to run if we need to. Jake, help Amy with whatever she needs." The ship moved forward like a careful cat. The station grew larger on their screen until Jake could see the details of its construction. The crystal formations Amy had mentioned were everywhere, growing from the walls like frozen flowers. They were dark now, but Jake thought they might have been beautiful when they were lit up. "Captain," Amy said suddenly. Her voice was strange. "You need to see this." On the screen, a new picture appeared. It showed the inside of the station, captured by their scanning equipment. The corridors were huge, much bigger than any human would need. The walls were covered with what looked like artwork, flowing patterns and shapes that seemed to move even though they were carved in stone. "Whoever built this place loved beautiful things," Jake said. "Look at this," Amy said, pointing to another part of the scan. "These crystal formations aren't just decorations. They're some kind of technology, and they're connected to everything: the lights, the air system, the power generators." "Like a nervous system," Ben added, "as if the whole station was alive." Captain Park studied the images. "Any sign of the life form?" "Yes," Ben said. "It's in the central area of the station. The readings are strange, though. Sometimes it seems small, like a human. Other times it seems much larger." Jake felt a chill run down his back. "What do you think that means?" "I don't know," Ben admitted. "But whatever it is, it's been alone in there for a very long time." The ship continued to move closer to the station. Soon they would have to decide whether to board it or move on. Jake looked at his crewmates and knew they were all thinking the same thing. Someone was trapped in that beautiful, broken place. Someone who might have been waiting for help for longer than humans had been traveling between the stars. "Prepare." "The shuttle," Captain Park said quietly. "We're going aboard." The shuttle bay of the alien station was enormous. Jake stood next to Amy and looked up at the ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. Their small human shuttle looked like a toy in the huge space. "The air is safe to breathe." "Ben?" "Side," checking his instruments. "A little thin, but we can handle it." Amy was already walking toward what looked like a doorway. It was 3 times taller than any door humans would build. Everything here was made for beings much larger than them. "Stay together," Captain Park ordered. "And keep your weapons ready, but don't shoot unless I say so." They walked through corridors that were like walking inside a piece of art. The walls curved and flowed like frozen water. The crystal formations Amy had seen on the scans were everywhere, but they were dark and cold now. "Look at these," Amy whispered, stopping next to a wall covered in carved pictures. "These tell a story." Jake looked at the carvings. They showed tall, graceful beings with long arms and faces that seemed kind and peaceful. In the pictures, they were making music with instruments that looked like they were grown rather than built. "They were artists," Amy said. "Musicians." "Were?" "Captain." Park asked. Amy pointed to other carvings further down the wall. These showed the same beings, but now they looked different, twisted and angry. In these pictures, they were running and fighting. The beautiful instruments were broken on the ground. "Something happened to them," Jake said. "Something bad." Sound echoed through the corridor. It was low and deep, like a growl mixed with a sob. Everyone stopped walking and listened. "That came from ahead," Ben whispered. They moved forward more carefully now. The sound came again, closer this time. It sounded sad and angry at the same time. The corridor opened into a vast room with a ceiling so high their lights couldn't reach. In the center of the room was a raised platform, and on that platform was something that made Jake's heart race with fear. It was huge, maybe 3 times the height of a human. Its body was covered in dark fur or scales that seemed to move in the dim light. Its arms were long and powerful, ending in hands with claws that could tear metal. But it was the creature's face that scared Jake the most. It had eyes that glowed with intelligence and pain, and when it opened its mouth, rows of sharp teeth caught the light. The creature saw them and roared. The sound was so loud it made the crystal formations on the walls vibrate and ring like broken bells. "Back away slowly," Captain Park said. But her voice was shaking. The creature jumped down from the platform and started walking toward them. Each step it took shook the floor. Jake wanted to run, but his legs felt frozen. Then Amy did something that surprised everyone. She stepped forward. "Amy, no," Captain Park shouted, but Amy kept walking toward the monster. She pulled out her small music player, the one she always carried with her. Her fingers were shaking as she turned it on. The soft sound of a violin filled the room. It was a simple melody, something Amy had recorded from Earth's classical music collection. The creature stopped walking and tilted its massive head. Listening, the growling stopped. "It's working," Ben whispered. "The music is calming it down." Amy turned up the volume a little. The violin melody echoed through the huge room, mixing with the natural sound of the crystal formations. The creature sat down on the floor, still, watching them, but no longer looking angry. "Incredible," Amy said softly. "Look at its eyes. It's not just listening to the music. It understands it." Jake could see what she meant. The creature's glowing eyes had changed. They still looked sad, but now there was something else there. Hope. Maybe. Amy took another step closer. The creature made a sound, but this time it wasn't a growl. It was almost like singing, but broken and rough, as if it had forgotten how. "It's trying to sing along," Amy realized, "but it can't. Something is wrong with its voice." The music continued to play, and slowly the creature began to relax. It laid down on the floor, making itself smaller, less threatening. But Jake could see that even lying down, it was still huge and dangerous. "What is it?" Jake asked. "I think," Amy said carefully, "this is one of the beings from the wall carvings. But something changed it, made it into this." Ben was studying his medical scanner. "The readings are strange. It's like there are two different life forms in the same body. One that's calm and intelligent, and another that's angry and violent." "A curse," Amy whispered, "or maybe a disease." The creature heard her voice and looked directly at her. Jake saw intelligence in those glowing eyes, trapped inside a body that had been changed into something terrible. Amy sat down on the floor, making herself less threatening. She kept the music playing and began to hum along with it. The creature listened, and slowly, very carefully, it began to move closer. "Amy," Captain Park warned. "It's okay," Amy said. "It won't hurt me, not while the music is playing." The creature was close enough now that Jake could see the details of its face. Under the frightening exterior, he could see traces of the graceful beings from the wall carvings. This had once been something beautiful. Amy reached into her pack and pulled out a small keyboard, another one of her musical instruments. She began to play along with the recorded violin, creating harmony. The creature made that broken singing sound again, but this time it was clearer. Jake realized it was trying to join in, trying to make music the way it once had. "How long have you been alone here?" Amy asked softly. The creature couldn't answer with words, but it held up one of its clawed hands. On the fingers, Jake could see marks carved into the skin. Thousands and thousands of tiny marks. "Days," Ben breathed. "It's been counting days, for years, maybe centuries." The creature nodded, understanding that they had figured out its message. Then it stood up and walked to one of the walls. It touched a crystal formation, and suddenly the room filled with light. All around them, the crystals began to glow. But the light wasn't steady. It flickered and pulsed, and Jake realized it was keeping time with Amy's music. "The whole station responds to music," Amy said in amazement. "It's not just a building. It's an instrument." The creature looked at them and made a gesture toward another doorway. It wanted to show them something. "Should we follow it?" Jake asked. Captain Park looked at her crew, then at the creature that stood waiting patiently. "Yes," she said, "but keep the music playing." As they followed the creature deeper into the station, Jake wondered what other secrets this place held, and what had happened to turn musicians into monsters. The creature led them through corridors that glowed brighter as Amy's music continued to play. Jake noticed that the crystal formations were responding more strongly now. creating patterns of light that danced along the walls like living things. They entered a room filled with broken instruments. Jake had never seen anything like them. Some looked like harps made of living crystal. Others resembled violins, but they seemed to have grown from the same material as the walls. All of them were damaged, cracked, or shattered completely. The creature stopped next to what might have once been a piano. It was huge, designed for hands much larger than human hands. The creature touched one of the broken keys, and a single pure note rang out. The sound was so beautiful, it made Jake's eyes water. Amy stopped playing her music for a moment. The creature immediately became tense, its glowing eyes growing brighter with what looked like fear or anger. "Don't stop," Ben said quickly. "It needs the music to stay calm." Amy started playing again, and the creature relaxed. But now it was making gestures with its clawed hands, pointing at the broken instruments, then at itself, then at the walls where more story carvings could be. "Scene. It's trying to tell us something," Amy said, "about what happened here." The creature walked to the wall and touched one of the carvings. As it did, the crystal formations around the carving began to glow brighter. Suddenly Jake could see the story more clearly than before. The first carving showed the graceful beings living in harmony. They were making music together, and their music was making beautiful things grow. Cities of crystal, gardens of light, instruments that seemed alive. "They create with music," Amy breathed. "Their whole civilization was built on harmony." The next carving showed different beings arriving. These were smaller, more like humans in size, but they carried weapons, and their faces were twisted with anger and hate. "The Kithara," the creature said suddenly. Its voice was rough and painful to hear, like grinding stone, but Jake could understand the word. "That's what they're called." "The ones who did this?" Amy asked. The creature nodded and pointed to more carvings. These showed the Kithara attacking the musical beings, but it wasn't just a war with weapons. The Kithara had brought something worse. In the carvings, Jake could see the graceful beings changing. Their bodies were becoming twisted and dark. Their beautiful faces were turning into something frightening. The instruments in their hands were shattering as they lost the ability to create harmony. "A weapon," Ben said, studying the images. "Some kind of biological weapon that changed them." The creature made that broken singing sound again, and Jake realized it was trying to say a word. Velathi. "Velathi," Amy repeated. "That's what you are. What you were." The creature nodded sadly. Then it walked to another section of the wall. These carvings showed the final part of the story. The Velathi, now changed into monsters, were destroying their own beautiful cities. The Kithara watched from their ships as the once peaceful race tore apart everything they had built. "They made you destroy yourselves," Jake said, feeling sick. "They turned your own people into weapons against your culture." The creature called Corvin looked at Jake with those intelligent, pained eyes. It pointed to itself, then held up its clawed hands, showing all the tiny marks carved there. "You've been counting the days since it happened," Amy understood. "How long have you been alone?" The creature went to another wall and began touching different crystals. As it did, numbers appeared in the light patterns. Jake couldn't read them, but Ben was working with his computer to translate. "If I'm reading this right," Ben said slowly, "it's been over 3,000 years. 3,000 years alone," Jake thought. 3,000 years of being trapped in a monster's body, remembering what you used to be. The creature made more gestures, pointing to different parts of the station. Amy seemed to understand what it was trying to say. "There are others, aren't there?" she asked. "Other Velathi who survive." The creature nodded eagerly. It went to a large crystal formation in the center of the room and placed both hands on it. The crystal began to glow, and suddenly the room filled with a map made of light. Jake could see star systems and planets scattered across the galaxy. Some of the lights were dim, others were flickering, and many had gone completely dark. "Those are the locations of other Velathi," Amy realized. "The dim ones are survivors, and the dark ones "Are dead," the creature finished, its rough voice filled with sadness. Ben was studying the map with his instruments. "There aren't many left. Maybe a few dozen scattered across thousands of light years." The creature touched one of the flickering lights on the map. It was close to their current location, only a few days away by human ship. "You want us to help you find the others," Captain Park said. It wasn't a question. The creature looked at her and nodded. Then it did something that surprised everyone. It knelt down, making itself smaller, and bowed its head to the human captain. "It's asking for our help," Amy said softly. After 3,000 years alone, it's asking strangers to help save what's left of its people. Jake felt something tight in his chest. This creature had every reason to hate other species. The Kithara had destroyed its entire civilization. But instead of hatred, it was showing hope and trust. "The Kithara," Captain Park said. "Are they still out there?" The creature's eyes flashed with anger and fear. It touched another part of the crystal map, and new lights appeared. These were red and moving, showing the locations of Kithara fleets. "They're still hunting," Ben realized. "Still looking for surviving Velothi to kill." The creature made urgent gestures, pointing to the map where red lights were moving towards some of the dim Velati locations. "They're in danger," Amy said. "The other survivors. The Kithara are closing in on them." Jake looked at his crewmates. They were just 5 humans with one small ship. How could they possibly stand against an enemy that had destroyed an entire civilization? But then he looked at the creature kneeling before them. For 3,000 years, it had kept hope alive. It had maintained the station, preserved the history of its people, and waited for someone to help. "We're not warriors," Captain Park said to the creature. "We're explorers, scientists. We don't have weapons that could fight the Kithara." The creature stood up and walked to one of the broken instruments. It picked up a piece of crystal that had once been part of a harp. As it held the crystal, it began to glow with warm light. The creature held the crystal out to Amy. When she took it, Jake could hear a faint musical note coming from it. "Music," Amy whispered. "Music is the weapon." The Kithara's biological weapon works by destroying harmony, creating discord. But if we could restore the harmony— The creature nodded eagerly. It gestured to all the broken instruments around. Then to Amy's simple human music player. "You think human music could help heal the curse," Amy said. The creature made that broken singing sound again, but this time it was clearer. It was trying to harmonize with the music still playing from Amy's device. And for just a moment, Jake heard something beautiful in that rough voice. "It's possible," Ben said, checking his medical readings. "The creature is definitely calmer when exposed to music. If we could find the right frequencies, the right combinations, we could turn monsters back into people," Jake finished. Creature looked at each of them with hope shining in its glowing eyes. It had waited 3,000 years for this moment. The question now was whether 5 humans could succeed where an entire civilization had failed. Amy spent 3 days working with the creature. She had set up her human instruments in the room with the broken Velothi music makers. Every day, she played different types of music from Earth while the creature listened and tried to sing along. Jake watched as something amazing slowly happened. The creature's voice was getting clearer. The rough, grinding sound was becoming smoother. Sometimes, Jake could almost hear the beautiful voice that must have existed before the curse. "Play the violin piece again," the creature asked. Its words were easier to understand now. Each day of music was healing something deep inside. Amy picked up her violin and began to play a simple melody. The creature closed its eyes and listened. Then it began to hum along. The sound sent chills down Jake's spine. Even with its changed voice, the creature could create harmony that no human could match. "Tell me your real name," Amy said gently. The creature was quiet for a moment. "Corvin," it said finally. "My name is Corvin. I was ... I was a teacher of music. I taught young Velothi how to grow instruments from crystal." "Grow instruments?" Jake asked. He had been wondering about that. Korven walked to one of the broken crystal harps. He placed his clawed hand on it, and Jake watched in amazement as the crystal began to repair itself slightly. A few new strings of pure light appeared. Music and life are the same thing for Velothi, Korven explained. We do not make instruments. We sing to the crystals, and they grow into the shapes we need. Each instrument is alive. Ben was taking notes on his computer. That's incredible. You're telling us that Velothi can create living matter through sound frequencies? Yes, Korven said, but the curse broke our connection to the crystal. We can no longer create. We can only destroy. Amy played another piece, this time a complex classical composition from Earth. As she played, Korven tried to join in, but Jake could see the frustration in his glowing eyes when his voice couldn't match the complexity of the music. Don't be angry with yourself, Amy said kindly. You're healing. It takes time. Time we may not have, Korven replied. He walked to the crystal map and touched it. The light showed that the red Kithara signals were getting closer to some of the surviving. Velothi locations. Captain Park had been studying the map with Tom Wilson. How long before the Kithara reached the nearest survivor? She asked. Korven touched different crystals, and numbers appeared in the light. 6 of your days, he said. Maybe 7. And how long would it take us to get there? Captain Park asked. Tom checked his engineering calculations. 4 days if we push the engines hard. Then we go, Captain Park decided. We can't save everyone, but we can try to save someone. Wait, Amy said. I have an idea. Korven, when you were healthy, could you communicate with other Velothi across long distances? Yes, Korven said. We could share songs across the stars. Our music connected all Velothi, no matter how far apart. Then maybe we can warn them, Amy said excitedly. If I can help you heal enough to use that ability, you could tell the other survivors to hide or run. Ben looked at his medical readings. The healing process is accelerating. Your biology responds incredibly well to harmonic frequencies. But I'm not sure it will be fast enough. Amy was thinking hard. Jake could see the wheels turning in her mind. What if we combine human and Velothi music? Not just playing together, but actually mixing our musical theories? She sat down at her keyboard and began to play a simple chord progression. Korven, can you show me how Velothi music works? The mathematical patterns you use? Korven walked to the partially repaired crystal harp. He touched the light strings and beautiful notes filled the room. But these weren't like human music. The notes seemed to bend and flow into each other in ways that shouldn't have been possible. We do not use your linear scales, Korven explained. Our music moves through dimensions of sound that your ears cannot normally hear. But our instruments can detect them, Ben said, looking at his sensors. I'm picking up frequencies that go far beyond human hearing range. Amy's eyes lit up. That's it. If we can record the full spectrum of Velothi music and then play it back through human instruments, we might be able to create a healing frequency that's stronger than either of our music alone. For the next several hours, Amy and Korven worked together. Amy would play a human melody, and Korven would add the complex Velothi harmonies. Ben recorded everything, capturing not just the sounds humans could hear, but the entire range of frequencies that Korven produced. Jake watched the crystal formations around the room respond to their combined music. The lights grew brighter and more complex. Some of the broken instruments began to repair themselves. It's working, Jake said in amazement. The station is healing, and so am I, Korven said. His voice was much clearer now. Jake could hear the intelligence and kindness that had been hidden under the curse for so long. Tom Wilson came running into the room. Captain, we have a problem. I'm detecting ships on our sensors, 3 of them, and they're not human. Everyone froze. Captain Park immediately went to the communication device. What kind of ships, Tom? Unknown design, but they're heavily armed. And Captain ... They're coming straight for us. Corvin let out a sound that was part growl, part terrified cry. Kithara, he said. They have found us. Amy grabbed her instruments. How much time do we have? 2 hours, maybe 3, Captain Park replied. That's not enough time to fully heal Corvin, Ben said, checking his readings. Then we run, Jake said. We take Corvin and get out of here. No, Corvin said firmly. If the Kithara find this station, they will destroy the history of my people. All the records, all the music, everything will be lost forever. Your life is more important than old records, Amy said. Corvin shook his massive head. You do not understand. This station contains the genetic patterns for rebuilding our entire civilization. If the Kithara destroy it, the Velothi are truly extinct. But if we can preserve it, we can restore your people, Amy finished. Yes, but only if someone is alive and healed enough to use the information. Captain Park was thinking quickly. Can we download the station's data to our ship? The information is stored in living crystal, Corvin explained. It cannot be copied to your machines. It must be transferred to a living Velothi mind. You're mine, Jake realized. Yes, but I am. Not healed enough yet. The curse still blocks most of my memories and abilities. Amy looked at her instruments, then at the approaching ships on the scanner. How much healing would you need to access the station's memory? Much more than we have time for, Corvin said sadly. Maybe not, Amy said with determination. Ben, play back that recording we just made. The combination of human and Velothi music. Play it at maximum volume through every speaker in the station. Amy, what are you thinking? Captain Park asked. If music can heal Corvin slowly, then maybe a lot of music can heal him quickly. We're going to flood this entire station with healing frequencies. Ben's fingers flew over his controls. That's incredibly dangerous. Those frequencies could damage our human nervous systems if they're too intense. Then we better hope it works fast, Amy said. She sat down at her keyboard and began to play along with the recording. Corvin, I need you to sing. Sing as loud and as clearly as you can. Let the station amplify your voice. Corvin took a deep breath. Then he began to sing. The sound that came from his throat was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was pure and powerful and beautiful. The crystal formations throughout the station began to glow so brightly that Jake had to shield his eyes. And somewhere in that incredible sound, Jake could hear the echo of what the Velothi had once been. A people who built cities with songs and grew instruments from starlight. The question now was whether they could heal fast enough to face the approaching enemy. The music was so loud that Jake felt it in his bones. Every crystal in the station was glowing like a star. Corvin's voice had become pure and strong, no longer the broken sound of a cursed creature. As he sang, his body began to change. The dark fur was falling away in patches, revealing skin that looked like polished silver. His claws were becoming longer, more elegant fingers. His frightening face was transforming into something that was still alien, but beautiful in a way that made Jake's heart ache. It's working! Amy shouted over the music. Corvin, can you access the station's memory now? Corvin placed his hands on the large crystal in the center of the room. Light flowed between his fingers and the crystal like liquid fire. Yes, he said, and his voice was completely clear now. I can feel it. The knowledge of my people is flowing into me. How much longer? Captain Park asked, watching the scanner. The Kithara ships will be here in 30 minutes. I need more time, Corvin said. His eyes were closed, and patterns of light were moving under his silver skin. There is so much information. The location of every surviving Velothi, the genetic codes for restoration, the harmonic frequencies needed to break the curse permanently. Jake looked at the scanner screen. 3 dark ships were approaching fast. They were bigger than the human ship and covered in weapons that looked like they could tear a planet apart. We need to buy more time, Captain Park decided. Tom, take our ship out to meet them. Maybe we can slow them down. Captain, Tom said nervously. Our ship has no weapons. It's a science vessel. I know, Captain Park replied. But sometimes the best weapon is being unexpected. Amy was still playing. Her violin, helping to maintain the healing music. What if we don't run? She said suddenly. What do you mean? Jake asked. The Kithara destroyed the Velothi with a weapon that created discord and hate. Amy explained, her fingers never stopping on the violin strings. But what if we hit them with the opposite? What if we attacked them with pure harmony? Ben looked up from his medical computers. That's crazy. You're talking about using music as a weapon. Why not? Amy said. If music can heal a curse that's lasted 3,000 years, maybe it can do other things too. Corvin opened his eyes. They were no longer glowing with trapped anger, but with a clear, silver light. She is right, he said. The ancient Velothi texts speak of harmony weapons. We never used them because we were a peaceful people. But they exist. Can this station create harmony weapons? Captain Park asked. Yes, Corvin said. But it requires a fully healed Velothi to operate them, and I am not completely healed yet. The scanner beeped with an urgent sound. The Kithara ships were only 15 minutes away now. How much more healing do you need? Amy asked. Corvin was quiet for a moment, feeling the knowledge flowing through him. Perhaps if you help me. If human and Velothi work together, we might be strong enough. Tell me what to do, Amy said without hesitation. It is dangerous, Corvin warned. To link your mind with mine, to share the harmonic connection. If something goes wrong, you could be trapped in the same curse that held me. Amy, no, Jake said. It's too risky. But Amy was already walking toward Corvin. 3,000 years alone, she said. No one should have to bear that. And no one should have to face their destroyers alone either. She reached out and took Corvin's hand. The moment their skin touched, light flowed between them. Amy gasped as alien memories filled her mind. She saw the Velothi as they had been before the curse. Tall, graceful beings who sank cities into existence and grew gardens of living crystal. I can see it, Amy whispered. Your whole civilization. It was so beautiful. And it can be again, Corvin said, if we succeed here. Together, they walked to the large crystal control center. Amy placed her hands next to Corvin's on the crystal surface. The station around them began to change. The broken instruments were repairing themselves, growing new parts from pure light. The crystal formations were extending and connecting, forming complex patterns throughout the entire station. The Kithara ships are here, Captain Park announced. They're trying to communicate. Put them on speaker, Corvin said. A harsh, angry voice filled the room. It spoke in a language Jake didn't understand, but the hate in it was clear. They are demanding that we surrender the surviving Velothi, Corvin translated. They say they will destroy the station if we do not comply. Tell them we refuse, Captain Park said firmly. Corvin spoke into the communication system in the harsh Kithara language. The response was immediate. The station shook as the first weapons hit its shields. Shields are holding, Tom reported from the human ship. But they won't last long against those weapons. Amy and Corvin were working together at the crystal controls. Light was flowing between their hands and the crystal like a river of stars. Around them, the station was transforming into something that was part building, part musical instrument, part living creature. The harmony weapons are almost ready, Corvin said. But Amy, when we fire them, the feedback could kill us both. Then we better make sure the first shot counts, Amy replied. The station shook again under another attack. Cracks appeared in some of the crystal formations. They're breaking through the shields, Ben warned. Now, Amy said. We do it now. She and Corvin pressed their hands down on the crystal controls. The entire station began to sing dot. It was the most beautiful and terrible sound Jake had ever heard. It was the combined voices of every Velothi who had ever lived. Mixed with the mathematical precision of human music, amplified by crystals that have been growing for thousands of years. Song hit the Cathara ships like a physical force. Jake watched on the scanner as the 3 enemy vessels suddenly stopped firing. They were drifting in space, their weapons silent. "What's happening to them?" Captain Park asked. Corvin's voice was strained but triumphant. "The harmony is breaking. Their technology, their weapons, their ships, everything they build is based on discord and conflict. Pure harmony is poison to them." But the effort was costing both Amy and Corvin. Jake could see them getting weaker as they maintained a harmonic attack. "You're killing yourselves," he said. "Not killing," Amy said with a tired smile. "Creating. Look at the scanner." Jake looked and gasped. All across the galaxy, the dim lights that represented surviving Velothi were growing brighter. The harmony wave from the station was reaching them, healing them, restoring them. "The curse is breaking," Corvin said. "All of it. Every Velothi in the galaxy is being freed." The Cathara ships were retreating now, their systems too damaged by the harmony to continue fighting. But Jake could see that Amy and Corvin were near collapse. "That's enough," he said. "You've done it. You can stop now." But Amy shook her head. "Not yet. We need to send the restoration codes to the other Velothi. They need to know how to rebuild." Light poured from the crystal as Amy and Corvin sent. The accumulated knowledge of their civilizations across the stars. Every piece of Velothi history, every song, every technique for growing living crystal instruments. When it was done, both Amy and Corvin collapsed to the floor. Jake rushed to help them, fearing the worst, but Amy opened her eyes and smiled. "Did we win?" Jake looked at the scanner. The Cathara ships were gone. Across the galaxy, bright lights showed where Velothi were awakening from their curse. And next, to him, Corvin was sitting up, fully healed, no longer a monster, but a being of grace and beauty. "Yes," Jake said. "You won." 3 weeks had passed since the battle with the Cathara. The station had become a place of beauty again. Crystal gardens grew in rooms that had been dark for thousands of years. The broken instruments had repaired themselves and were making soft, gentle music that filled the corridors with peace. Jake stood in the main hall watching Amy and Corvin work together. They were teaching each other their different types of music. Amy showed Corvin how human violins worked, while Corvin taught her to grow crystal instruments that responded to thought and emotion. "Try again," Corvin said gently. "Do not think about making the crystal grow. Think about the music you want to create and let the crystal feel that desire." Amy placed her hands on a small piece of crystal and closed her eyes. She imagined a violin, but one that could create the flowing dimensional harmonies that Corvin's people used. Slowly, the crystal began to change shape. It grew strings of pure light and a body that seemed to float in the air. "I did it," Amy said with excitement. "I actually grew an instrument." "Yes," Corvin said, and his silver face showed something that might have been a smile. "You are learning to think like a Velothi. Soon you will be able to create living music." Captain Park walked into the hall carrying a communication device. "Corvin, we're getting messages from other Velothi across the galaxy. They want to know what happened here." Corvin touched the large crystal control center. The room filled with voices speaking in the beautiful flowing language of the Velothi. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the joy and relief in every voice. "They are thanking us," Corvin translated. "Thanking humanity for helping them break free from the curse?" "How many survived?" Ben asked. He had been working with Corvin to understand Velothi biology and medicine. "More than we hoped," Corvin replied. "Nearly 200 across 50 star systems. They were scattered and hiding, but now they can come together again." Tom Wilson was working on the human ship's communication system. "We're also getting messages from human space," he said. "Word about what happened here is spreading. A lot of people want to meet the Velothi." "And we want to meet them," Corvin said. "My people remember humanity now. We remember that you came to help us when no one else would." Amy was practicing with her new crystal violin. The music she made was different from anything human instruments could create. It seemed to move through the air like a living thing, creating patterns of light and color. "Corvin," she said, "what will happen now? Will the Velati rebuild their old civilization?" Corvin was quiet for a moment, thinking. "We will rebuild. Yes, but not exactly as we were before. The curse taught us things about ourselves. We learned that beauty and peace are not enough if you cannot protect them." "You want to become warriors?" Jake asked. "No," Corvin said. "Warriors destroy. We want to become guardians. We will use our harmony to protect other peaceful species from enemies like the Cathara." Captain Park nodded approvingly. "The galaxy needs guardians. And we will need teachers," Corvin continued, looking at Amy. "Human music is different from ours, but it has power we never imagined. If we combine our knowledge, we could create something new," Amy finished. "Something that's both human and Velati." Over the next few days, more Velati began arriving at the station. They came in ships that looked like they were grown rather than built, vessels of crystal and light that moved through space like living creatures. Jake watched as the first Velati refugees landed. They looked like Corvin did now, tall, graceful, beings with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Their faces were alien but kind, and when they spoke, their voices created harmony even in normal conversation. But Jake could see the sadness in their eyes too. These were people who had lost everything and spent thousands of years as monsters. Even though they were healed now, the memories of what they had done while cursed would stay with them forever. "They blame themselves," Amy said, watching a group of Velati standing together in silence. "Yes," Corvin agreed. "They remember destroying their own cities, their own families. The curse made them do terrible things." "But it wasn't their fault," Jake said. "I know that. You know that. But they do not feel that yet." Amy picked up her violin, the human one she had brought from Earth. She began to play a simple, gentle melody. It was a song about forgiveness, about healing, about the possibility of starting over. The Velati heard the music and turned toward her. Slowly, they began to move closer. One of them, a female with intricate patterns of silver on her skin, began to hum along with Amy's melody. Soon, all the Velati were singing together. Their voices created harmonies that no human throat could make. But Amy's violin wove through their song like a golden thread, connecting human emotion to Velati mathematics. Jake felt tears on his cheeks. The music was telling a story of loss and hope, of curse and redemption, of two species learning to understand each other. When the song ended, the female Velati approached Amy. "I am Liren," she said in careful human language. "I was a healer before the curse. I want to thank you for giving us back our voices." "Music belongs to everyone," Amy replied. "It doesn't matter what species you are. If you can feel emotion, you can make music," Liren nodded. "Then perhaps you would teach us about human emotion. We understand Velati feelings, but human feelings seem different, simpler in some ways, but also more intense." "I'd love to," Amy said. Captain Park was talking with several Velati who seemed to be leaders. "They want to establish formal contact with human government," she told her crew. "They're offering to share their crystal-growing technology in exchange for musical knowledge and protection treaties." "Protection from what?" Ben asked. "The Cathara are still out there," Corvin said. "Our harmony weapons drove them away, but they will rebuild. They will try again. And there are other species like them, beings who fear beauty and try to destroy it. Then we'll face them together," Jake said. "Humans and Velati." "Yes," Corvin agreed. Together, Amy was teaching a pod group of young Velati how to play simple human melodies on crystal instruments. Jake watched as the children, for they seemed like children despite being aliens, laughed and experimented with sounds they had never heard before. "You know what this reminds me of?" Amy said to Jake. "What?" "A music school. This whole station. is becoming like a giant music school where different species can learn from each other. Jake looked around at the beautiful halls filled with the sound of humans and Velothi making music together. Crystal instruments grew next to human violins and keyboards. Alien voices harmonized with human songs. The Cathara thought they were destroying the Velothi, Jake said. But really, they just scattered the seeds of their culture across the galaxy. And now those seeds are growing again, stronger than before. Corvin approached him, carrying something in his hands. It was a crystal violin, but one unlike any Amy had grown before. This one seemed to contain tiny stars within its structure. "This is for you," Corvin said, offering it to Amy. "It is made from the first crystal that responded to your music, mixed with elements from my home world. It will always remember the song that broke our curse." Amy took the instrument carefully. When she touched the strings, they produced notes that seemed to come from the heart of the galaxy itself. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "As are you," Corvin said. "All of you. You came to us when we were monsters and saw the beauty that was hidden inside. You taught us that curses can be broken, that hope can survive even the darkest times." Amy raised the crystal violin to her shoulder and began to play. The music that came from it was the story of their entire adventure, the discovery of the station, the fear and wonder of first contact, the sadness of learning about the curse, and finally the joy of healing and friendship. As she played, Jake realized that this was just the beginning. Humans and Velothi would explore the galaxy together now, spreading music and beauty to worlds that had known only silence and fear. The beasts had become beautiful again. But more than that, beauty had found new forms, new expressions, new ways to touch the hearts of beings across the stars. And in the crystal halls of the ancient station, the music played on, a bridge between worlds and a promise that some things are too beautiful to ever truly die.